So today's episode has a guest star of Dorri Aspinwall. She lives in Staten Island as well, just like me. So I want to take this time to honor all of the wonderful, great celebrities that have come from Staten Island. Such luminaries as um, Pete Davidson and uh, yeah, I'll come back to that later. This episode of The Performers I Know coming at you! These are the performers I know, I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know, I know. These are performers I know. These are the performers I know, I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know, I know. These are performers I know. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Another fun episode of The Performers I Know. This is episode number 25.
Wow.
Oh, and wow, indeed. That voice you
Yes.
just heard is my guest this week, all the way from Studio Staten Island. She's from Staten Island as well. I think you might be the first person that I have interviewed who is from Staten Island, just like myself.
Really?
Ladies and gentlemen, this lady needs no introduction. She is a fantastic performer, and she is here as my guest. Let us give a big old round of applause to Dorri Aspinwall. Dorri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dane. I am so excited to be doing this with you, and thank you for the compliments. Uh, I'm excited, and
Oh,
I
not as excited as I am. Oh, so, ladies and gentlemen, to set the scene, once upon a time, several years ago, um, we did a production of Hairspray for the Staten Island Academy of Performing Arts,
right.
and Dorri played Edna Turnblad. Boy, howdy, when I tell you, it was one of my favorite shows that I did. It was a fantastic cast. You and Don Seymour, who played
Uh,
Dorothy Turnblad, you guys had fantastic chemistry. It was
uh,
amazing, 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 amazing.
well, the funny thing is, I am hardly a triple threat. I don't sing or dance, and well, we had a number that I danced in, and I don't ever want to see that. I'm sure it wasn't pretty. Um, but the song that Don and I did, that wasn't too terrible. That was fun.
No, I
So
think it was one of the best parts of the show, if you ask my opinion. But Dory, my first question that I want to ask you, as I ask all of my guests on the show, what
mhm.
got you bitten by the theater bug? What got you into theater and acting and all that wonderful?
funny, funny story. Um, I was going to the which is no longer here, the Episcopal Church in Tottenville, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. And every once in a while, they would put on a show to raise money for the church. And it was parishioners and Tottenville people. And this was probably back like early 70s. And nobody from the other side of Staten Island would come to Tottenville back then. And so I I just helped out with the first show. I ordered tickets and sold refreshments and took reservations and just was a jack of all trades. And the fellow who was putting it on, he was the church organist. And we got little ads for a journal from the local people in Tottenville. And he said, well, stop at my house and meet my wife, Betty, because she's got stuff from other shows. So I did. And Betty and I are still friends to this day. And Bill unfortunately passed away. But a couple of years later, they did another show. And he said, well, why don't you take a part? I said, oh, I couldn't do that. Well, P.S. I did. And P.S. that was all that I needed. And we did Neil Simon's Prisoner of Second Avenue.
Oh, that's a good.
And oh, the show was great. I wasn't that good. And it was so long ago that the local high school had just started to videotape things. Fortunately, they taped over our show, so it's never to be seen again. But that was all I
Huh.
needed to be bitten.
Oh
And
boy.
um,
Here's the video from Second Avenue. Who taped the baseball game?
but
Goodness.
uh, but
Uh,
it was a fun show to do. And like I said, all you have to do is get on stage once and you're bitten.
it's
And
true. That's
and
how it happened
then
to me.
after Bill passed away, we set up a scholarship in his name at Tottenville High School. And the girl that stepped in had theater experience. She was my neighbor, my friend. She would help me run lines. She would direct me. She would give me pointers. And I got the chance to do so many great shows. And I did Linda in Death of a Salesman. I did Romaine Hilder and Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution. Um, the list just goes on and on. And I after that group kind of folded, but we had done a lot of shows. We had probably done 10, 15 shows, and then we'd go to the other side of Staten Island and do them. And then I just fell into involvement with other theater groups on the island. And I'm always a little insecure because most of the people, Staten Island, Zane, Staten Island, Dane, Staten Island has amazing talent. And a lot of it comes from Wagner College, and all the schools have great theater programs and great people teaching these programs. So I'm always a little intimidated because I never had any training. But on the other hand, I've learned a lot from just working with these talented, giving people.
Well, it's so interesting to hear about like because I see people like Charles Sullivan
Mhm.
and Maglisi and Mike Schiavo and a bunch of and you know a whole bunch of other people who talk about like the early good old days of Staten Island theater, all these wonderful, wonderful productions. And it's like, what I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall because some of the
uh,
stories that seem to go around sound quite interesting. Uh,
yes. And
so
back in the day, if you were part of one theater group, you weren't part of another theater group. Um, that's and a lot of the groups were started because people wanted to do theater. Um, Staten Island Shakespearean Theater, I think, is 45 years old. Civic Theater used to be big in the day, and they were one of the few, along with Shakespeare. There weren't a whole lot at the time. And Seaview was around, I don't know exactly how old they are, maybe 35, 40 years. Um, but like I said, if you worked for one, you didn't work for the other. Now it's different. And now you could do shows for Ghostlight. You could do shows for Seaview Playwrights. You could do the Ferry plays for Sundog. Um, and they're just all welcoming. And
or or the
I
Vagabond Repertory Theater Company if
that's
the owner
right. That's right. And
if
I
the owner
have
gets off his ass and does another show, well, I'm probably gonna
no,
do
but that was a lot of fun when was one of the highlights when we had the pandemic that we did Zoom stuff. Um,
Yes. Dorri was a
and
part of my second ever virtual show, the
uh-huh,
Witches in the Woods, where she played Mama.
uh-huh.
And it was spooky, scary. I mean, I don't know, in your story career, have you ever really played a lot of villainesses or
Oh, yeah. Crazy and mean are the best parts to do. I did a one act play up at a Tennessee Williams one act play up at Seaview, and it was Portrait of a Madonna. And
mm,
this girl went from sweet Southern girl to totally delusional just to to I won't say the word I want, but just crazy, and she'd switch on a dime, and it was so much fun to do.
She
Um,
portrait of a Madonna. All of a sudden, she started singing "Open Your Heart to Me," and then everything just went absolutely haywire. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong Madonna. That's
right. I told you I'm not a singer. That's not part of my resume, unfortunately. In my next life, I'm going to be a singer and dancer.
you mentioned just a few moments ago that back in those days, people really didn't go to multiple groups. Do you prefer the way it is now, where people can hop back and forth between different groups?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, because it's not so much a competition. You strive to do the best performance, and there's so many talented people that can give good performances. But I've I've done like the little victory. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, and I know I am, but I've just been so blessed to meet all these people, and only once, and that was out at the church, and I was going through a bad stressful time in my life, and there were a few other things, but only one show wasn't fun for me. And it should have been. It was arsenic and old lace. It should have been a blast, but there were two other actors that were a problem, and I had my dad was ill and moving in with me, and I was working, and two kids, and it was very stressful. But I mean, if I had to guesstimate, I've probably done at least 30 shows, maybe more, maybe 40. And they've all been a learning experience. They've all been fun. They've all been with great people. A lot of laughs, that can, special bond. And
I don't want to name any names. So I'll just keep this as vague as possible.
okay.
There are certain people in the Staten Island community scene
Mm-hmm.
who seem to, even from an early time, be of the notion of, well, if you do shows with other theater companies, you're betrayed. That's a betrayal. That's a slap in the face.
Uh,
I don't, like I said, I'm not going to name any names,
uh-huh.
but it's just like I find that to be a trifle bit ridiculous.
Yes,
Unless
yes,
you are under contract with somebody and they're paying you exclusively,
right.
you go wherever the heck you want. But that's just
That's
me.
right. And I haven't really run into that problem. I've been very fortunate. But it doesn't surprise me that from time to time things pop up. There's diva personalities out there, but
Mhm.
for the most part, I've had really good experiences. And
Tell me about it. I've had some good experiences on Staten Island theater, and I've had some bad experiences. But I think sometimes you have to take the good with the bad. It's kind of a
that's
learning
right.
experience.
It is, and you can really learn a lot. Um, like I said, I've been very fortunate to work with some very good actors, and they share their knowledge, and directors too. You know,
Yeah.
so
But see, there's something about Dory that I would like to bring up now that is a very interesting fact, and I think this is a first for the show.
okay,
Dory is an ordained minister.
yes, I as of last Saturday. Since June of 2012, I have married 109 couples.
Ah, excellent. But I
And
must,
I love doing it. You're with people at their happiest, and you meet a lot of nice people. And if someone calls me about doing a wedding, I invite them over so I can get to know them and talk to them and see what kind of service they want. And I have some material to give them, suggestions for wording of vows and blessings and things like that.
I mean, that
And
in a way, that is kind of like a theatrical event because you're trying to see
yes,
to get what people. My question is, Dory, how did that come about? How did you fall into that, having to do the being an
This
ordained minister?
this is another funny story, and I'm going back quite a while. Um, in the morning, um, if I wasn't working, I don't know how far, but I retired from banking in December of 2006. But I was watching an episode at the time of Kelly, and I guess it was Regis at the time. So that's going back quite a ways. And she was saying that her husband, Mark, got ordained. So he was asked by the shock jock DJ Howard Stern if he would marry him and his fiance. And I thought, oh, what a fun thing to do, you know. And I said, hey, I wonder how that works. You know, maybe it's just for one wedding. And when I was growing up as a girl, you know, everyone was invited to the church. Only a handful of people went to the receptions. So you would get dressed up with your gloves and your dressy dress and maybe a hat and go to the church. So, and my mom and I used to do that. I mean, only for people we knew, of course. Not we just didn't go to strangers. But I just thought, oh, that would be a fun thing to do. And I years later, I finally looked into it. By then I was retired, and I got information and went online, and I know it was under $100, less than that to do it, and then ordered some materials, and here I am. Here I am, and I keep in touch with a lot of these couples on Facebook. Um, so. And another funny story: I've done background work in movies and television, and
Yes.
I was on the set of the movie Sully with Tom Hanks. And
Mhm.
I, you know, when you do background, it's a long day. It's a lot of standing around. They adjust the cameras. They adjust the microphones. They adjust the light. They shoot a scene from every which way, front, back, sideways, above. And I was supposed to just be background. You're supposed to be invisible, not talk. And I'm in the back. It was in one of those Hudson News stores, and they had placed me with two other people perusing magazines and books and things like that in the back part of the store. And Tom Hanks is as the character, um, Sullenberger, comes into the store and gets something to eat, and is talking to the girl who works there, who he knows well because he's a regular customer. So I'm reading in one of these magazines that Tom Hanks performed the wedding of actress Allison Williams. And um, I'm thinking about it, and we had a long break waiting for them to reset. And I was, oh, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away from Tom Hanks, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I said, excuse me, I just have to ask you. I was reading in a magazine. He said, what did I do now? I said, I was reading that you did the Allison Williams wedding. And he said, oh, I did. I went online. I paid $35. I got ordained, and I married her. And, you know, he did the ceremony. And I said, well, the reason I ask is because I'm an officiant too. And he said, oh, I've done two. How many have you done? And at the time, I said, well, about 22. So he pats me on the shoulder. He said, okay, you win.
You know, I've heard from more than one person that Tom Hanks is like the legit nicest man
Uh-huh.
in Hollywood, and that just proves the point exactly.
Right, right.
I'll tell you a quick story because I've never done background, but my father inadvertently got himself into a movie. I mean, of course, it's probably on the cutting room floor. Okay, he used to
Yeah.
work in Manhattan
Uh-huh.
back in the day, and he was on his lunch break, and he's just walking along the street, you know, just minding his own business, as people are wont to do. And he apparently wandered onto a film set. And so he's walking down the street, and all of a sudden he hears, cut. who is that guy? My dad's like, oh wait, are they talking about me? He he inadvertently walked in between Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith as they were filming Men in Black.
Oh, that's so funny.
And my dad was just like, oh, oops. Yeah,
He had to be really oblivious because there's so many cameras and lights and everything in the face.
well,
Although I shouldn't say that. When you're on a street, sometimes they'll be back far enough that you won't notice, you know. But I've been lucky. I in 4 or 5 different movies or TV, I've been on a jury. And that's great because you sit most of the day, you get to watch the actors, and you react a little bit, and a little bit of acting silently. And I was on an episode of Bull, and I was paid to look at uh, um, Michael Weatherly. I did a movie where I had to look at James Franco for a couple days. That wasn't bad either,
like
But I did.
Michael Weatherly.
Right. I I did an episode of Law and Order SVU, and those shows run all the time.
Yeah.
And the episode was called Comic Perversion, and if you see it, I got a lot of FaceTime. It's like, if you look at it, you'll think, oh, she paid the cameraman, she paid the editor to give her all the screen time, and it was just dumb luck.
Mm-hmm.
But every time it's on, somebody will post on Facebook or give me a call. I saw you on TV, and like I said, you're not supposed to talk to the actors, but sometimes you just get the opportunity. And I think the one actress, I'm not sure her first name is Elizabeth, her last name is Marvel, and she was a defense attorney in a lot of episodes for a while. And there was downtime, and she was standing right in front of the jury. And I said, "Oh, I love your shoes." And oh, thank you. She said, "They give me the best wardrobe here." So sometimes you just interact, and the people are so nice. So
Absolutely. Now, just recently, Dory, as we record this, it is the 26th of March.
mhm.
And while I just wrapped up Murder on the Orient Express,
I was
you,
sorry I missed that.
yeah, I had a very good time. It was
Mhm.
very great cast. You just wrapped up um, Born Yesterday,
Yes.
which is a very interesting story. I'm not going to ask for, the inside baseball details, but they were supposed to do it like last
Last year,
year, and then it
last
got
April.
yeah, and then it got delayed to
Well, we kept having cast changes for one reason or another.
oh, okay.
And it was almost like the theater gods did not want us to do that show for whatever reason. And at the very last minute, we said to the director, we can't. We just can't do this. We're just not ready. We don't want to,
See, the
you
problem
know.
was you didn't have Eric Rosen in the cast
That's right. That's absolutely right. And
because Eric is in everything on the planet.
oh, I
And
know.
of
And
course, this is not me making fun of him because I think Eric is a superb actor and a very nice guy.
yes, he is. But this, we were able to reschedule it for this year. And almost with the exception of Eric, everyone who did it last time was in it again, but they played different parts. But we had rehearsed it. So you came into a show basically knowing your lines. Even if you had another part, you heard the lines, you knew
Right.
pretty much the blocking of the characters. And we rehearsed for 4 nights a week for about 6 weeks. Well, in the beginning, it wasn't 4 nights a week, but the last month it was. And our director, Mimi McMahon, who's very good, she was able to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. And it was a fast-paced comedy. Sometimes things are not really funny because they're too slow.
Mhm.
And the fella who stepped into the lead, who had another part, he really learned his lines and he had to say them quickly.
That
And I
was
think that
Robert
was
Giuliano, I believe.
no, that was Tony Salemi who had the lead. Uh,
Oh,
but and he had to say it quickly. That helped him memorize it, but it moved the show along. And the only person who stepped in who didn't do it last year was, like you said, Eric Rosen. And Eric's character, he didn't have, he had lines, but you know, not a bazillion lines, but he had more action than it. He was in and out. He was answering the door. He was making drinks. He was taking coats, bringing shoes, taking slippers, you know, back and forth. And he likes to be perfect. And he got impatient with himself and he was doing fine. And of course, when we opened, he was great, you know. Um, so it was a really fun cast. And it was a shame we didn't do it last year, but this year it came out even better. And I tell you, this play is over 70 years old. It was written in the late 40s. I think it opened, I guess the movie came out in 1950.
you know,
But,
I actually tried out for it last April.
oh, did you?
Yeah, because I read the script, I'm like, this is actually a really interesting
Uh-huh.
concept. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like My Fair Lady,
Uh-huh. Right. That's
but
right. But the thing is that over 70 years ago, and things have not changed. There's misogyny, crooked politicians, which I played, which again was a fun part, and originally was supposed it was a male character, but there were female senators then, so I stepped in, and it was really a fun part because in the beginning you didn't know I was corrupt. I mean, it came out quickly, but it was fun to do. It was fun to do.
yeah.
But and funny little tidbit, um, Judy Holliday was an actress around in the late 40s and 50s, and she was a blonde. She was very funny, um, and she had done the play and wanted to make the movie, and they said no because she wasn't that well known. But whoever had it dropped out in a couple days. She came in and learned her part in just a few days, had it down pat, and was so good that she won the Academy Award that year in 1950. And the she beat out Betty Davis,
Hmm.
um, four top actresses. I can't remember the other three at the moment. Two of them, one from Betty Davis and another one who slipped my mind. They were both up for All About Eve. And and not only did she beat these women, but she was in a comedy and they were all in serious dramas,
Uh, to answer Dory's question, it was as follows. It was Ann
uh,
Baxter in All About Eve, Betty
okay.
Davis in All About Eve, Eleanor Parker in something called Caged,
Uh,
woman prison movie apparently, and
uh-huh.
Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that was the other one. Yeah. Unfortunately, Judy Holliday, she passed away in her 30s or 40s from cancer. And she was really funny. Although not that I'm partial, but I really liked our play better than the movie. The movie's on the movie channel a good bit. And as funny as it was, and as she was, I liked our play better.
And to go even further into Inside Baseball, it says here Rita Hayworth was reported to be in line for the role, then Gloria Graham, then Jean Arthur and Lana Turner before they settled with Judy Holliday. So,
Right, right, right.
uh,
So,
so
yeah.
as I can see by the old clock on the wall that we are starting to run out of time. This has
Oh,
been a wonderful episode. But
oh, thank you.
Dory, my final question to you, as I ask all of my guests, is if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Dory, I would like to get myself into doing theater and acting, background work," what would be the piece of advice that you would give them? The best piece of advice in order to best to get into doing theater and acting?
Go to the different shows on Staten Island, get to know some of the people. Um, I hadn't acted for a while because I was working and had kids and stuff. And my son saw a little blip in the paper that they were having auditions up at Seaview. And I didn't know a soul up there. And I went, and it was for Tennessee Williams one act plays. And I didn't give a particularly good read. But I told the man directing it, Michael Coriali, who since passed away, that I've done other stuff when I was at the church. I did stage managing and props and sound and lights and whatever. I said, so if you need any help, call me. Well, I didn't get the part, but a week later he called me and I stage managed the play. And that's how I got to know people up there and eventually auditioned and just, fell into it that way. So, you start helping any way you can and get to know people and things just fall into place.
Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's
Yeah.
what I say. Well, as our outro plays us out, I want to thank our very special guest, Dorri Aspinwall. Thank you very much for coming, Dorri.
Thank you, Dane. I really appreciate it.
It's not as much as I appreciate you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. So long, everybody. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know.